world we envision is to start in our classrooms. I mean, truly, we're not going to band-aid ourselves to get there at the end of the day. Like, we need to really prioritize education at a different level. And that means everything from who we think should be part of this education workforce to how much we invest in it, to how we think about the very purpose of education. Like, we need to reset on the whole picture.
I'm your host, Jason Rasnick, founder of Benzinga, a leading platform in the financial world with the mission to level the playing field for individual investors. And this is the Raz Report podcast, where we share inspiring stories, expert advice, and exclusive perspectives to keep you ahead of the ever-changing world of investments and entrepreneurship. Let's dive into the show.
All right. Welcome to this week's edition of the Raz Report. We have a special one. This is about education. It's about teaching. It's about teaching the future of America, the future of this world. I have
America and all.
And all. I have 3 kids. Wendy Kopp, CEO and co-founder of Teach for All, which she started in 2007. She used to lead Teach for America. So Teach for All. Wendy, welcome. But tell us about you and Teach for All.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Well, this all started actually 35 years ago when I was a college senior. And
Which college?
I was at Princeton. I was part of the, quote, me generation, and I was convinced that that was an inaccurate label and that the issue was not the generation, but rather that all the recruiters were banks and consulting firms just banging down our doors saying, commit just 2 years to work in our firms. And I thought our generation was searching for a way to make a real difference in our country and to address the inequities in the country. And that's what led to the idea of Teach for America, to say, why aren't we being recruited as aggressively to commit 2 years, just 2 years, to teach in urban and rural public schools? And it was just an idea that was very quickly far beyond me. And I spent the next really 24 years with my head down, working alongside, of course, many, many others, building that out and seeing that idea play itself out, and those just 2 year commitments becoming lifelong commitments and leading to kind of a generation of advocates for kids and system change in education. And then about 20 years ago, we started meeting people all over the world who were just determined that something similar needed to happen in their countries. And that is what led to the launch of the Teach for All network, which is a network of now 62 organizations, including Teach for America, just adapting that approach to their countries.
And this Teach for All, is a big effort into recruiting college grads to get involved and go and teach for that 2 year program?
We think of that's the unifying approach, right? Like, let's recruit some of our nation's most promising leaders. So India's most promising leaders of all different academic backgrounds and career interests to put a 2 year commitment into teaching in their country's most marginalized communities. What we've seen over time is that it's about those 2 years and every year after the 2 years, because those 2 years are so transformative. They're so important for the kids in the classrooms, but they're also transformative for the teachers themselves and foundational for a lifetime of leadership. And so all over the world, we're seeing what we call collective leadership building through this work. So we reach a point where in any given place, there are ultimately, many, many people who are working throughout the ecosystem around kids, some still in classrooms, some as school leaders, some in the government ministries, people inside the system, but also advocates and social innovators pushing on the system from the outside. And what we've seen is that with enough people in a place who are all on the same mission, things start changing in an aggregate sense. So that's what we're working to do all across Teach for All, is to say, how do we build collective leadership for ensuring all kids fulfill their potential?
Aaron, did you get involved with Teach for America? I know anyone back in the day?
No, so I do know people, like friends of mine that I've had that have done it, and they've all been like super high performing students. Actually, one came out of University of Michigan.
Go Blue?
Yeah, and so how does the organization, I know you're not currently with them, Teach for America, but how does it recruit these like very high potential students, kids coming out of Ivy Leagues to go teach in, like you said, an inner city or rural community when they could go make, 6 figures right out of college?
Well, what we've seen initially in the US and now truly, all over the world, all over every region of the world, is that there are people out there, like some of the most promising leaders in the rising generation, wherever that may be, who have a real yearning to make a real difference, and they just need the opportunity. And so these organizations are all, well, doing what banks and consulting firms do, right? Like becoming a presence on college campuses and making it possible for people to make their first choice. And some of them, do this, like maybe it's their second job after they do something else and realize this is what they want to do. But and these organizations are recruiting aggressively, just like the corporations in their countries. They're selecting people according to really high standards. They're investing a lot in their development. And they're supporting their ongoing kind of leadership as a force for change.
Got it. Wait, I do. So this Teach for All, I was thinking about it. So you're combining a bunch, not combining, but there's organizations in India and different countries that you don't run. They have their own, but you're like trying to put it like together, like work with this umbrella company, Teach for All.
It's a network. It's a network of independent, locally led, governed organizations with a global organization that is all about just helping everyone learn from each other. The staff members, the teachers they recruit, the alumni leaders they become, because we know that in education, and I think this is true in many sectors, but ultimately system transformation needs to be deeply locally rooted, meaning rooted in local context, culture, values, and globally informed. And so this is one of our core values, right? Like we're going to operate in ways that are locally rooted, owned, driven by local leaders, and that enable those local leaders to learn from each other across borders so that we can all move faster.
It's amazing. I mean, I'm part of Endeavor. It's like a Endeavor network, with companies.
Yeah.
And, my question to you, so do you guys get your money like fundraising just like a normal, or is it like part of the, like, how does that work?
Yeah, each of these organizations are building funding bases. This is one of the great constraints of our work, right? Is to say we
Yes.
convince the corporate philanthropists and the private family foundations and the institutional foundations and the governments to invest in this very long-term but essential effort to build the leadership capacity necessary to really transform our education systems and address these kind of deeply entrenched inequities.
Got it. Okay.
So Wendy, going back to your personal journey, like into this field of work, were you always, did you always love school? Were you like a teacher's pet?
I was.
You're obviously a good student. You went to Princeton.
Yeah, I
right?
felt like I had been given the chance to attain an excellent education, and I sort of saw that a great education is a path to freedom. Truly, like I felt like the whole world was open to me. I could do anything, and I'd become really aware that that isn't the case for everyone. That not everyone has the chance to attain that kind of education, and that's really when I started grappling my senior year in college with the question of what do I want to do with my life. I just thought, what could be more fundamental than education, and so that helped generate this idea, I think.
No, but so that's like my grandma used to say to me, like go to school, get my law degree, because it's something that can't be taken away from you. So Wendy going to Princeton, getting a degree and building this, it can't be taken away. This 2-year program can't be taken away from you. It's you're becoming this really powerful alumni network. This is a question I really want to ask you. Since you've had so many successful people go through different programs, what are like some common traits of awesome leaders today that you see?
We've done a lot of research actually to try to understand kind of what differentiates the folks who make the most extraordinary difference in classrooms in some of the most under-resourced communities around the world. There's no one profile, but some of the traits that are most important. One is perseverance in the face of challenges. We're looking for people who have taken on big things and have figured out what they can control and have driven towards those big ambitious things, because that's what it takes to succeed with kids, especially in very under-resourced systems that really weren't set up to meet their extra needs. We're looking for people who are very relational, like we find that people who form relationships with their students, the students' families, the other teachers in the schools, with each other, who look for help, that's a huge, huge differentiator. Of course, for this work of ours, we're looking for people who are really passionate about this issue, who deeply believe in the potential of kids and families in marginalized communities, and who are determined to tackle the kind of systemic inequities that they face. Those are some of the biggest differentiators.
So right now, Wendy, I mean, it's been the case for a long time that in the United States, there's a big disparity in public schools between, affluent communities and ones that aren't as well off. But a lot of those discrepancies in the educational system got exacerbated by COVID-19, school closings. I mean, richer families could afford private tutors, stuff like that, to help keep their kids up to date. Other people couldn't. What can be done now to try to alleviate some of those effects from the COVID-19 pandemic and the schools shutting down?
It's a great question, Aaron. That is like a thing that, it's like the haves or have-nots for that one.
Yeah, I mean, it was always like that, but then it got worse during COVID-19, and we're seeing those effects now. You can see it in test scores and reading levels, and I've spoken to some of my friends who are teachers, and they make it sound like a very dire situation.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like the inequities were there, and this very unprecedented situation only exacerbated them. I will say, I mean, the big kind of international assessment of 15-year-olds that looks at 15-year-olds in developed countries around the world just came out, and it actually showed that we're in the midst of a 10-year decline in educational outcomes overall. So that was even prior to COVID. So I guess I think what that points us to is that we need a real reset in education. And I think it starts with the priority we're placing on it. Like if we all step back and realize that, the only way to reshape the world, right? Like to put us on a trajectory to environmental sustainability and peace and, the world we envision is to start in our classrooms. I mean, truly, we're not going to Band-Aid ourselves to get there at the end of the day. Like we need to really prioritize education at a different level. And that means everything from who we think should be part of this education workforce to how much we invest in it, to how we think about the very purpose of education. Like we need to reset on the whole picture.
Do you think AI could be like a role in that? Like how can teachers and educational systems ensure that AI is being used to help students learn and not ultimately become like a crux on the education of students?
I think what we find again, I mean, AI I think it can be a hugely democratizing tool. Like it puts the power in the hands of teachers to make teaching and learning easier and more accessible in all of this. I will say that we need the foundations to be in place, meaning we need to ensure that we have whole buildings full of and systems full of educators and others who are on the same mission towards students learning and developing holistically so that they can shape a better future. And if that's true, then technology and AI can be a huge lever to get there. But what we've seen is AI technology, it's just going to amplify whatever was there. So if we're not on that trajectory, it can be a force for some other things that we don't really want. So I think we need to start with just the foundations, like, bringing folks together, rethinking the purpose of education to be relevant to today, committing ourselves to equity and excellence by that definition, and then really investing in the people throughout the system so that we have the leadership capacity to actually pursue that ambitious purpose. And then we can leverage the AI and the technology on the path to where we're trying to go.
Got it. Okay. Now, for this last part, I want to ask, so we're with Wendy Kopp, the Teach for All, co-founder, CEO, Teach for All. This is, if you're into education, you're into, helping children get access to, smart individuals, smart students. This is a program you should look into. If you're listening, you donate. These are the kind of programs that set up the future generations. So, since you've been around so many smart people and you're very smart, do you have a favorite quote or piece of advice that you received that was a real game changer for you? I know I'm putting you on the spot, so I apologize. But if you don't have one, then we'll go to the next one. But it's all good.
Mm.
Like a quote or something you live by that helps you get through those tough times or things or challenges, anything. If nothing,
Yeah.
I got more.
I don't have, I mean, I always think about, but don't have it in front of me, like the gray twilight quote, like better to tackle big things and take on big challenges than to exist in the gray twilight that knows not victory nor defeat. Who
Love it.
said that? I'm trying to remember.
Roosevelt. I think it was
Yes.
Roosevelt, wasn't it?
But that's like, I live
Yeah.
by that, right? Because this
Yeah.
is not always like fun and games. Like it's hard, it's challenging, it's messy, but I'd rather be doing this, something I know is completely important, fundamental, and very meaningful,
Game
than
changing.
to do something that's less so.
Yeah, you'd rather go out there and be brave and go for big instead of just do little and not make much change. And that's why people like you are heroes, and and how systems can be changed. What would be a book that you would recommend that people should read? I asked it because you have all these books behind you. That's the only reason I asked. So it could be a book on your bookshelf, but
Since this is a corporate thing, I mean, this book is on my mind, although, I mean, there's so many
I'm sure
different
there's so many, but
books that we could, but, we've been talking about our organization's development, right? And
yes,
we've been on this journey to reinvent our organization so that we're developing collective leadership within our organization and really developing the kind of agile organization that enables everyone to lead and pushes decision making out and all. And there was a book that inspired this journey of ours called Reinventing Organizations, which really has put us on a different trajectory over the last decade. So that's one I would recommend.
Is there like one big takeaway or two takeaways from that book that could help like organizations that you in your head? I know you're not going to be able to summarize the book in one sentence. I get it. I'm just
but it's about how to design organizations. I mean, it starts by sort of sharing out like different historical eras spawn different forms of organizations. And it kind of makes the case that in this very participatory era, we need a different form of organization that enables we need everyone's leadership. And so it's kind of around how do you design organizations that enable that. Honestly, I read it in one day because I had felt like I was looking for this for 25 years, and it kind of makes very tangible how to actually live into that. And I think for this kind of work, where that's what we're trying to do overall, like develop collective leadership in communities, we're not going to do that if we don't develop it within our own organization. So that's kind of that's why we embarked on that journey.
So you're basically like a 24/7 type person in the sense that you have organizations all over the world. So you got to like have you in weird time zones at times, I take it.
That's right. It's kind of around the clock. But, I take care of myself. Like we have to take care of ourselves so that we can run the marathon. But I feel incredibly privileged, in all honesty, as you can hear from the journey, like to find my way to this idea. And I have never had to find a different job. Like I'm not even doing a job. I just feel like I'm part of an incredibly enriching network of people who are kind of aligned by shared vision and purpose and values. And it's a privilege to do the work. So,
I mean, and there's probably some students that have gone on to like such success, over the years from Teach America. I mean, I bet Congress, the whole thing, like you got CEOs, et cetera, at this point. It's such a big organization.
Like ed tech founders and mayors and, many superintendents and state superintendents and literally thousands of school principals in the US alone. And literally it's the same movie playing in all these different countries in terms of like the young leadership forces that these organizations are creating.
It's amazing, Wendy. Congratulations on what you do. Where can people learn more about? Where should they go to learn more about Teach for All?
Teachforall.org. And you can find your way to all the network organizations through that as well.
Teachforall.org. Get your kids involved. This is the future. Again, it's our future generation. We need, like I said, we need more people running for president, right? This is a place where you can find the youngins to maybe get involved with that, so.
Like I said, the only people that I know that have done Teach for America have been like great upstanding students and individuals who are now doing other great things after those.
Same. And I was like, why are they doing the 2-year? And then and then it made sense. And I learned. Yeah.
And I think from what I heard from them, it's like very selective and hard to even get picked for now because there's so much demand to do it.
It's no regrets, because that experience will be with you the rest of your lives, and you'll be part of a network of others who are pursuing the same kind of vision of the world for the rest of your life. So it's the path.
All right. Wow. Well, thank you, Wendy, for coming on the Raz Report. We look forward to seeing more updates. Check out teachforall.org. Thank you.
Thank you.